Okay. Hey, everybody. So this is the audit committee meeting of the IDA and the Accelerator and the OCFC. Eddie, as acting chair today, would you like me to work the agenda?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. So the first item for discussion is our 2021 proposed budget. As a reminder, we go through the budget process right about now. It's due to the state by the end of October, but we like to try to get it ahead of you. We'd like to try to get ahead of it so we get it in front of you in September. That way, if there are any changes, we have a whole nother month to go back and revise it if necessary, and then come back at the October meeting to approve it. But if you guys find it to be sufficient today, then we can recommend to the full board for approval, and then we can go about the business of submitting it to the state well in advance of the deadline. So before I turn it over to Ed J., just want a few points to note. I know that Melanie sent out an email to everybody. So you have a copy of the Accelerator budget, the IDA budget, and then the OCFC budget. So we're going to talk IDA and Accelerator first. Between those two, on the IDA, on the Accelerator side, we reduced expenditures by just over $200,000, and that's with the inclusion of our new $250,000, or approximately almost 300. That's what we're using as the budget number, with the addition of the Highland Falls lease. So we were able to dramatically reduce our expenses. As everyone knows, revenues for 2021 we're not projecting anything crazy. Ed will talk a lot about that, but we have, we've had to tighten our belt loops. We unfortunately had some staffing reductions. So I know most of you know, but Sarah Wilson or DeSimone rather, is no longer working with us. We had to reduce our force. We reduced a lot of our contracted services, with some of our federal lobbyists, some of our, as we made this decision earlier in the year with some of our marketing and PR companies, really kind of slashed a lot of our expenses to make sure that we were operating methodically and within tighter restrictions than we had before. So with that all being said, I think the budget looks great. This is Ed's first year going through our budget process with us, so I'm sure he'll tell you how exciting it's been to have his first year have to be like all of these dramatic slashes. But with that all being said, I will turn it to Ed J. and have him go through the budget with you.
All right. Let's start with the IDA itself.
Yeah, Ed, are you guys going to be able to share your screen with that? Because I have it on my phone, but it's so small, it's hard for me to see it.
Yeah, I'll do that right now. I'll do it, Ed. Which one do you want to start with?
You want to start with the IDA one? Because that's at least get me, warm up a little bit as a warm up act.
You got it. All right. Bear with me 1 second while I find the right document. And so you can kind of start talking, but I will just the right one.
All right. Make sure I got the right one also here. Okay. The IDA. Set up there yet?
Sorry, I'm just trying to make it bigger. Is this the right one, Ed?
Yeah. Okay. So you have to move up a little further though. Let's start with the revenue. We could probably.
There we go.
All right. First of all, this is all cash, related, because some of these things are already on the books as revenue. We're just waiting for the receipt. So going through is basically on the revenue. The big item is the $2 million we'll get back from the Warwick Valley land development. Everything else, the other big item there is closing fees from Legoland. Those are the items there. Any questions in that section?
The whole 700,000 is Legoland?
That's 500,000 of it is.
Right.
The other 200,000 we have in there for the one project with the hotel.
Oh, okay. Okay.
All right, that's figuring that out. The only thing that's in queue. Okay. Then we go on the administrative cost. Basically, if I got another chart with a little more detail, what we took out of the, again, we taken out the consultants. That was the first item there we're talking about. While we're down 52,000. Auditors, that's basically just the going rate. Same with insurance. The bill for 2020 came in higher than the 2020 budget. Agency support, basically the same. What we did was on PTAC, that's now down in the research and support item. And then going on to projects and programs, the $1 million difference is that in 2020, we had the Heritage Trail, $1 million in the IDA rather than the, we call now Funding Corporation. And the $500,000 there, that's still there, is for Amy's Kitchen. And no changes in the legal.
Are they working at that site? Amy's Kitchen?
Not on the roadwork part of it. And actually, no, they're not working on the manufacturing site yet. They should be shortly. I think they were projected to start earlier this year, but COVID obviously pushed everything back. They did the Signs of the Soul first. So as once more, it's pushed back again. So a reminder too, we were just talking about this offline before the meeting, you know, I always like to touch base on this because it's been so long. So they applied and were approved before we had a labor policy auditing. So, but we did reserve the right to audit them if we hear of anything untoward happening. What we would be able to do if they were running afoul of what we have, I don't know, but you know, but we will keep, you know, in touch and make sure that, you know, I'm sure Mike will let us know if anything crazy happens at Amy's Kitchen.
Yeah, we've had minimal communication, but Science of the Souls is still, they're talking, but I'll believe it if I ever see it happen.
Right. Okay. Are we good with this? Just so the other thing with this research and support line, Ed mentioned that we moved PTAC, just as a way of explanation. PTAC, the Procurement and Technical Assistance Center, used to be run through the Rockland Economic Development Council. They closed up shop, so now PTAC is run through the Rockland Community College or SUNY Rockland. SUNY Rockland is waiting to get its designation from the federal government as a Procurement and Technical Assistance Center. This has been going on now for, well, the entirety of 2020 and a little bit in 2019. So who knows how long. That being said, we moved it out of there. If they come online some point, then we will still be able to contract with them and we won't have to make any changes to the budget.
Okie dokie.
Any questions on this one, or can I move on to the Accelerator budget? Give me 1 second. Is when it's really convenient to have 8,000 windows open at one time.
Yeah.
I'll sit there.
Almost. Let's see.
Go up to the top.
You got it. There you go.
All right. Starting with the receipts, basically it's unchanged. We go now just a little bit more on the rent. Then we'll go through the more detail on the expenditures. And let me get this thing right. Okay, so beforehand we talked about the staffing changes. That's the big reduction there. Benefits is up a hair. That's basically because the participation in healthcare is unchanged. And one item that wasn't in the budget was that's reported in that category is the employee reimbursement for cell phones and mileage. So for now, that's where that is.
Where is that? Ed, where did you say that is?
It's in the benefits.
Oh, okay.
Bill comes in, that shows up as part of the
right.
Payments, and that's what's reported. So just to be consistent, so especially when you have fewer people, that we're not overrunning on that category just because we didn't plan for it. Okay, except the payroll taxes and fees follows the trend on the salaries. Management expenses, that's the Galileo, part of the Galileo contract. That and the Accelerator with all walls. So I treat that as the two. Getting that reduction. Next one is professional fees. The main reduction of that one is we ended the Kivik contract. And on that one there, on the marketing and PR, again, we reduced the Focus Media contract in half. In the budget, which wasn't well, I would say, I guess it was implied, we had the Orange County Chamber of Commerce memberships. That for our clients, that was taken out. We had a lot of media purchases with, for I can't even think of the company's name offhand here, but for the print media and such, it was reduced or removed. That's where the 75,000 comes from. Special initiatives, that's pretty much on the what we've been spending to date, similar to it, and half of that money is for capital projects. Down the way. Okay, building expenses, most of that's driven by the addition of Highland Falls, thank you. And any particular items I would say is ones that are down, that's basically what the going rate is. We have not been spending that much money on building repairs and maintenance. The operation, I believe, is just a category that we had money in there for the Newburgh buildings. I think that's appearing in the rent line instead. Big driver on the office cleaning is the COVID, besides adding Highland Falls. We have it, assuming that the increased cleaning will continue into next year. And the additional money again for the information technology, which is basically the internet and cable going into these buildings. Highland went up. Plus, I'm assuming we're going to have, being a technology-driven organization, they're going to have a higher level of service than just basic Wi-Fi. So there's in there. We reduced the renovations. The 140 before was including barrel buildings and Highland Falls, budgeting 100,000 for the two of them. Equipment maintenance, again, that's a going rate, and how much money's been spent on that. So I dropped it down to that. Everything else is office supplies, travel, lodging. That's pretty much what we've been spending. The training, education, the conference expenses, that's back to the pre-COVID values. Assuming we're going to have conferences again, we sponsor those. And so you see the difference in spending is, we grew by a little over 200,000, and basically the loss, which would be what we need to support from the IDA, would be $2.5 million.
And as a reminder, I mean, this is to have a budget that's reduced by that much money with the addition of $250,000 worth of real estate, I think is a testament to how much this whole team, board, the staff have really kind of come together to make sure that we're being very thoughtful about every expenditure and making sure that we have addressed it and continuing to operate as lean as possible. I'm going to show real fast, excuse me, the combined budget. 1 second, just give me a moment. And the combined budget is one that we will have, this will be what is available this is what we'll post on the website and what we will be ultimately putting into the Paris reporting system. So, okay. And here we go. So this is the combined. So this is something that you're probably familiar with seeing. This is what goes on the website. This is what, again, we ultimately use as the guide. It's not apples to apples on the Paris input form, but it's although the categories are the same, it's just not exactly laid out exactly the same as ours is. But you'll see the combination of the revenues and expenditures. So Ed, I don't know, Ed, if there's anything that you or Vinny wanted to mention with the combined.
That's nothing I had to add.
Okay. Any questions from the members? No? Okay. All right. So that all being said, does this seem like something you guys would be willing to, or you'd be interested in recommending to the full board for approval?
Yeah, it looks good to me.
Yes.
Yeah, because I don't know where else you're going to possibly be able to cut, you know.
Right. Exactly.
I think we need some more conferences.
Well, you know, it's funny. The conference line is high because we always have a conference when we kick off a new accelerator. So Vinny's got a big idea for his AI conference. So I don't know if he wants to comment on that, but he's not even on camera. So he's probably just excited that we're talking about AI conferences and all, but yes. So if you're really willing to submit for approval, I would just need a motion and a second to do so, and then we'll talk about that in the full board meeting.
Motion.
Second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent.
Is Eddie Diana still here?
He's there. He's
I'm here.
Here you are. I didn't hear from you. I was wondering.
Okay, I'm here.
You're
laying
good?
down? You laying down, Ed?
Yep. No, sit there.
So the next item on the agenda is the Drury Lane and Bioonix. We'll move over to the OCCF budget in a second. I just want to get through the IDA first, then we'll go to the OCCF. So again, this goes back to the 2019 audit, when we had that conversation during audit committee to remove the Bioonix, New Hampton Technology, and Drury Lane items from our audit. We were carrying them over year over year over year. At that time, when we did that, I believe, Eddie, you had wanted us to make sure that the amounts were accurate. So Kevin and Ed worked together. Obviously, the COVID changed things because this was all paper documents. It wasn't electronic files, but they worked together once we were kind of able to get back into the files to review them. There's a memo that was sent out. Melanie sent out the email to the audit committee. The memo was sent out that does affirm that 161,000 for Drury Lane, 161,750 for Drury Lane, and 248,083 for Bioonix.
No, it's
Correct.
the other way around.
No,
160 Bioonix, 250 Drury Lane.
no, I've not found anything like that way. Those numbers been that way for 10 years.
I'm just reading off
Reported.
Kevin's note.
So we
But I
go
thought
through it. It's
I thought Drury was 250 and Bioonix was the 161. No? All right.
No.
Hey.
Eddie, I think you're confusing the 250 on Drury with a grant that was awarded but not all used. I think it was probably prior to or just after we did the investigation on the site. I think there's two different numbers out there. I think you're thinking of one.
Well, why would there be two, Kevin, on Drury Lane?
Well, I think the one we spent on the actual environmental and to investigate whether part of that part of the property is actually buildable, and
Right.
we did, I think on behalf of the Port Authority, I think it was, and the state of New York. There was another grant that came in, because I have a file here from Phil Crotty, and it showed it was a grant of $250,000. And from what I can gather, I guess it was an expenditure that was not even totally used because the grant expired at some point in time. But it was, I think that might be where you're getting the number 250 from. The other numbers.
Well, go ahead. All right, Kev, go ahead.
Yeah, the numbers on the investigation, those numbers have been solid as far as I know since, before I got here. Obviously, I don't know exactly where those. But that's what Ed was looking at the ledgers and trying to verify those numbers.
Okay. But I thought Drury was 253 or 250, and the state was supposed to pay us back. And we tried to get the money back, and they didn't get it back.
That's
what
the
I thought
one.
happened.
Yeah, I think it started close to 250, Eddie, and then for some reason it got whittled down. Yeah, and the Port Authority was supposed to pay us for that, and they never did.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, I remember all of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So net, we're gonna charge it off and make it go away for 2021 or 2020?
Ed J.
Yeah, that's yes. We would take it so that it's no longer showing
Yeah,
up on
because
our
we're not-
books is something we wrote, it's currently, we take a reserve, so you're gonna,
Right, so, I mean,
Take it
technically,
out.
the value is 0, but we're carrying it as an open item on our
yes,
financials, and we're not doing anything to collect it, so it's,
Right.
to me, it's way past time to just
Right.
make it go away.
and so, yeah, we'll take it off and then, in the
The
next.
only thing that-
uh,
All right. The only thing that bothers me is, Bioonix is one thing. That was a couple of people and primarily Ernie Green,
Right,
and we couldn't come up with the money or whatever. But the other one's the state of New York, and it's the Port Authority that has more money than God. So that one bothers me to just forget it, I guess. You know what I mean?
well, I agree,
I don't
I
know
agree,
what
Ed.
to
I
do.
mean, minimally, it's annoying. The problem is that anything we would try to do to try to collect it would probably end up costing us more money.
Right, I
So,
understand.
it's not, unfortunately, it's not worth it, so.
Right.
And I think, over the years that I've been on the board anyway, I think that, staff and management spent a lot of time trying to negotiate to get them
Right.
to do it. And so
Right.
I think it's time to call it quits.
I think it was back in 2014, 2015, the board wanted me to write a letter to the Port Authority. But
Right.
before I got to do that, they said, no, let's try one more time administratively.
Right.
Let's not have the lawyer start writing letters, running up costs. And I think that Ed Harrison was the head, I think, at the time.
Yeah.
And I think Lori, I know whether it was Bob Armistead or Jimmy Petro or a combination.
Right.
Both. Yeah.
And they said, no, sorry, until the state gives it to us, we can't give it to you, or some such nonsense.
Yeah, we had a few meetings with Ed back then to try
Right.
to resolve it, and it never really went anywhere. And then now, of course, I'm sure that with everything else and everybody talking about budget shortfalls, we would be in an even
Oh, I
longer.
can assure you, it's not on the books of the Port Authority
Right, exactly.
as a payable.
Right.
So, okay.
Okay, so I'll also close on that during the full meeting. And then lastly, it's not on the agenda for this one before we move to the OCFC budget, but I did want to talk about it with you briefly before we talk about it in the full board meeting. So in the email that Melanie sent out, there was a lot of information about the Sentinel Realty in Port Jervis. For those of you who don't remember, that is an assisted living facility that took over it was a Days
Hotel.
Inn, and yeah,
A
in
hotel,
Port.
right.
So they've been fine. They've been good stewards of their incentives, except for the fact that they inadvertently used their sales tax exemption in the year 2019, not having realized that it had expired December 31st of 2018. So we uncovered that in the 2019 audit. They had said that they had spent roughly $73,000, they had saved roughly $73,000 in tax exemptions. But when we contacted them to let them know that they weren't supposed to use it, and oh, by the way, we're going to need that money back, they went back to their books and said it's actually $12,000 that we spent for 2019, not 73. So, there are a number of roads that we can take, but it's our recommendation to enter into a recapture scenario with them for the $12,000. And then collect the $12,000 from the Sentinel, turn it over to Department of Tax and Finance, along with the 2 forms that they've submitted to the state in both amounts, and then let the state determine which is the best. What is the accurate number? They reserve the right to audit, and it's certainly their core business more than it is ours. But I do think that it would be best practice for us to, as we've talked about before, recapture when it's appropriate, and this is definitely one where it's appropriate. So I just wanted to see how you guys felt about that before we acted on it.
I think it makes sense.
I think it makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the Sentinel is very cooperative. I was in constant communication with Eric Newhouse. When I brought it to them, a letter, they called me right back. I explained the situation, why we had a recapture, why we have an obligation to recapture. They wanted their auditors to look at the books. I think they found a lot of the expenditures they entered in 2019 were actually incurred in 2018, but they couldn't, so that they could write off, that they really actually had expended it, and they were just entering it in 2019. The project was basically done in the beginning of 2019. So when they came out and the auditors came back with the $12,000 number, they submitted exactly what they thought they had overexpended the exemption, gave us a list of the contracts and the like, and I forwarded them to Lori and Melanie and stuff like that. So I mean, we can spend more time trying, sending our auditors in, but again, this is, they clearly admit that they owe this money back, and they've been, I say, very cooperative all throughout, so.
Yeah, well, they were a good applicant right from the beginning. I mean, we never had any trouble with them, so.
That's it.
Yep.
I don't have a problem with your recommendation at all.
Great. That being said, Ed, if you're ready, I will share my screen to do the OCFC budget.
All right.
And this one I have handy in a.
Okay, I just have to get mine with my crib notes here.
Yes, I was trying to. I want to make it a little bit bigger for you guys.
Yes, please.
What's going on?
Whoa. How about that? All right.
All right, go on the revenue side or the receipts. This is fairly straightforward. We're assuming no activity on closing fees for next year. Do have people, our resiliency loan will be starting to pay back in December. So I have a full year of the 2-year payback. That's $205,000. You get the loan interest off of that of $6,000, and then on the savings on our investments of the $2,400. That's a lot of it driven by we'll be getting CDs expiring in February. So when that will recognize, or that cash will become available at that time. On the expenditures, in short, go through the items here. But it's not, sorry, I'm getting a little, trying to get this to see my, pretty much went through whatever we've been doing on the current spending, far as the items there you see on administrative expenses, auditor, insurance, going right, not having another loan program. The loan administration is basically covering additional work from our CPAs and the software to manage the loans. And project expenditures we reduced by $50,000. And so, in short, I mean, you see we reduced the spending by $144,000.
I think there ought to be some provision in this budget for non-payment of loan payments. Because on the revenue side, you're assuming you're going to collect 100% of what's due in 2021, correct?
Pretty much. I didn't fearing we're going to have some people pay in advance.
Right. I mean, when we did the program, we didn't expect, our expectation was not that 100% would get repaid.
Right.
So I don't know. What do you think, Mike and Eddie?
Well, I think we should leave it to see. We might get surprised that people do pay, and then we can always adjust it if we had to. I mean,
okay.
I think we should. I just think we should see what happens. That's
yeah,
all.
yeah, no, that's true. I mean, but maybe on the expenditure side, we should have somewhat of a reserve, Ed.
We could put something in there. I mean, it's, the other thing too is, I mean, it's, you put, 5-10% or something like that, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, we don't have any data, so we don't really know what our expectation is.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. We don't have anything to look at right now. So.
Right.
Oh, we do have some who've already repaid in full. We have a number who started to repay. So the signs are looking pretty good,
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, over the long term and over all of the loans.
I just think it would be a little bit more conservative to have at least something in the expenditures for reserves. I mean, if we're wrong, that's great. You know what I mean? If there's none, that's great.
Any recommendation? If I do 10%, that much or?
Well, my only concern would be that because this is all public record, so once we do that, the people that might not want to pay may not pay. I just don't. I wouldn't do it. That's me.
Well, it's pretty standard procedure, in any lending scenario, and also in large, institutions that have, bad debt, like hospitals and things like that, you know what I mean? There's always a reserve
Right.
for an expectation of unpaid, you know? And I think 10% is a pretty low number, so. But look, if you guys don't want it, it's okay. I don't think it's material enough to change the budget significantly in any event. But it's gonna be
Right.
interesting to see
My
what our
only reasoning would be, Mary Ellen, that it's a brand new program. We have nothing to look back
Right.
on
Right,
to see what it would actually be. That's all.
yeah, all right.
After the first 3 months, we'll know something. And, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I would think so.
And we
Right.
can always amend our budget if we want to
Right.
in the first
Yeah.
quarter of 2021.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
All right, we can
Okay.
do that.
So that being said, would you be comfortable with recommending as is for approval for the OCFC?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay, just need a motion and a second on that one.
so moved.
Second.
Agree.
Okay. Great. That being said, we are, I think that's it. We don't have anything else on the audit committee agenda at this moment. So
Okay,
give a little
All right.
break before the 2 o'clock meeting. How about that?
all right, we'll see you next.
Okay.
All right.
Good
thanks,
meeting.
guys.
Here.
All right.